Hi, everybody. I'm Rick Hale, and I'm proud to bring another edition of Empire Builders to you. And today we have a special friend on tap to share wisdom, perspective, and maybe even a little perspective around where we're going and not just where we've been. But please welcome Jim Campbell today. Again, a good friend. He's with the Title Alliance, and he's the CEO. In fact, he started in 2004, setting up affiliated businesses with real estate companies, and he's got a lot of Keller Williams connectivity, and I'm certain some outside of Keller. They currently have 60 offices, 40 companies, and they operate in 13 states. Last year alone, they did just over, I believe, 70 million and 22,500 transactions. Does that sound right?
Rick, that sounds spot on. Yeah, we've been associated with Keller Williams. We're going on our 22nd year. So I've been to 21 family reunions. So I think I get a special stripe for that.
You do.
Yeah.
That's legendary, man. I don't even, I think I've been to 22. I've got you by one.
Well, you're probably going to win the race.
2000. I don't know that one does the trick, but if it does, I'll take it.
Yeah.
So anyway, you've been an incredible organization and a massive team. And again, you're an insider and an alliance partner with a lot of our folks. Georgia is an attorney state, which makes it a little trickier. Yes. I'm absolutely certain that you and I would be in business if we were structured any other way. And I think we're only one of two in the entire country, right?
Well, yeah, there are a few states that are attorney driven, and there are ways to make it work, but it is more complicated because of the attorney involvement and how you have to run things through their account. So there definitely is an extra layer. It doesn't mean it's not something that's viable, but it's an extra step that most states don't have. And in our space, we're in the affiliated business arena. There are probably 15 to 20 really good states, and another 15 or so that are medium weight. And then there's some that are really, really challenging. So I put Georgia in the mid range as far as it's doable, okay, but all the stars would have to be in alignment.
Yeah, duly noted. So we should keep an eye on that opportunity. So in the spirit of the context for Empire Builders, my goal is to bring a holistic conversation. And I also believe that, people, data and data points and fact points are interesting and supportive. But at the end of the day, people really love to hear the story, if you will, or the origin of success. And the idea is that we're all on a mission and a journey, if you will, to creating fulfillment and hopefully maximizing potential, which includes wealth and wealth building. And the interesting thing is, I think humans are more alike than different. It's just how we execute and how we approach and our mindset. And so I know you've got a powerful mindset and clearly a big vision to have created the organization that you have. But let's go back and rewind the tape to where it all began. What was it like growing up being you? Give us a little perspective.
Yeah, I was probably not the typical 5 or 6 year old where I actually went and cold called for my first job when I wasn't even in first grade. And you learn lessons pretty darn quickly in that space. And the first job that I earned was with 3 or 4 of my friends. And we were very diligent. We went to a pizza store and we said, hey, we'd like to work. We'd like to earn money. And nowadays, you would never allow a 5 or 6 year old to do this. But he said, sure, we'll take you. So we worked all week. We made pizza boxes and we did all kinds of illegal things like putting flyers on cars in apartment buildings and all that sort of thing. But you learn real quickly. So at the end of the week, I said, okay, great. Let's talk about today's Friday, today's payday. What does that look like? And the guy laughed and he smiled and he threw us all. It was Geppetto's Pizza, little t-shirts. And so the lesson to be learned is make sure you get the details in advance. I worked the entire week and I got a t-shirt for my effort. So you learn real quickly.
If it's not in writing, it doesn't
exist. If it's not in writing, yeah, exactly.
An agent.
Even at 5 or 6 years old, if you've been bamboozled. So, my experience in anything, and I think like a lot of people, Rick, you learn more from the challenges and maybe the mistakes than you do the good things. And you just try and tackle them as you go. And throughout my history, I could say that I've had my share of successes, but equally said, I've had my share of failures. And it's the failures. And we'll do a number of things that will help you resonate. Like, number one, like what can you do differently? It's a self-reflection, and also really helps you identify like who is good to be around you, or perhaps who is not good to be around you. And you learn just by being through difficult circumstances.
Yeah, right on. So at 5, you had your first business and entrepreneurial experience. Clearly, it must have lit a fire. How did the things go through high school and then into college?
Yeah, I kept a similar track. I was just doing, things that I guess that were age appropriate at the time. Then I got a newspaper route, which that was all well and fine. And I worked my way through, and I was just doing things where I was actually earning money on my own, not quote unquote working for somebody. And it wasn't purposeful; it was just the way that it was. And I remember when I was probably like 7 years old. I don't know if this applied to you, but in the school that I attended, there was a Christmas sale, and and you had this box of things, and you had to go, find out, go to different neighbors, and it was candles and little shaky things and those type of things, candy boxes. So I was really proud of myself. So I went out, and the first day I took my little white box, and I went in the entire neighborhood, and I came home proud as a peacock to my mom. I said, "Great news, Mom! Sold everything." And she said, "Jimmy," she goes, "they were just samples. You were just supposed to take orders." So you learn, and so I knew that I had that desire. I love being around people. I love the thrill of the hunt. And I know this with real estate agents, and I know we're going to talk about this, Rick. I mean, that is my arena. That's my space. That's where I get really, really passionate. But you have to be self-initiated, and you have to go do things. But you learn as you go, right? You make mistakes and you learn as you go. And then my path continued, and when I was still in college, I started working some different things, and when I was finishing my last year at Widener University, I really felt like I needed to do more. And I could say this: I wasn't a wonderful student, and it wasn't wonderful because I probably wasn't smart. It was wonderful because I just had other things going on in my brain, other distractions. And I just wasn't good. I went to a big school to start off with, and I found that for me, I was most impactful when I had so much to do. I had no other way to turn, and I actually went and received my first and only job. I actually cold called for that job as well. There was a prominent leasing company in my area, and I just saw his name on buildings and whatnot, and I just cold called the guy. And I said, I don't know if there's a position, but I'd love to just have a conversation with you to see if I can be of value. And that's really where I got, I guess, an indoctrination into like really self-improvement and making sure that you're the best at who you were. And I was doing Tony Robbins back when I was 20 years old. Just going in, and we would go in, and it was like really, it was gifted. And I only worked for this gentleman. I still keep in contact with him. His name is Eustace Mita. I only worked with him for I would say about 2 years, but I'll say this: I learned a whole heck of a lot in those 2 years. And I remember going back, and you want to talk about something. I was like 21 at the time. 21, you have a lot of distractions going on. We used to have daily sales meetings every single day at 7 a.m. And we would all go sit in his office. There were about 7 or 8 of us. And we would go through, and we would read a chapter out of Og Mandino's The Greatest Salesman in the World. And I cannot get that out of my brain. Here I am, 35 years past that. And I share it with my son. In fact, my son graduated Penn State. He did it the right way. I did it the wrong way, but he did graduate on time. He did everything right. And he started to pick up on things and some of the things that I've done. And I said, and he asked about, some books to read. And I said, I'm going to throw a throwback to you. And I shared that book with him. He goes, "Oh, that's cool. I appreciate that." He goes, "But I saw that in your office last week and I just read it." So,
man, that's sharp. That's
yeah,
awesome.
Yeah.
What a testament to great parenting, or lucky he got the connected perfect genes, I guess, in some ways.
I don't know, and it's funny, with any well, he's not a teenager anymore, but if I would have told him to read that book, it would have happened. Like never. In fact, I did try many, many years, and I just gave up on that front. Anybody that's a parent knows that sometimes what you say, they're going to want to do the exact opposite. So I gave up on that quest and just let him and both of my children. I have 3 children, 26, 24, and 22. And let them organically figure out and just sort of be a backdrop there if they want to go deeper with anything that they see me doing.
Yeah, it's commonly held belief is that people resist anything pushed upon them. No one likes to be sold, but everyone wants to buy. We want to buy, we just don't want to be sold a bill of goods. And young teens are particularly vulnerable to rejecting parental ideas. So that's extremely common. but obviously by example, you inspired him when the timing was right. And he organically evolved into a space where you could maybe listen better or pay attention better. And the other piece of it is asking great questions. I've learned that if you ask good questions, and someone self-discovers their truth, it's hard for them to renege on their own opinion or deflect or defend. Once you express your opinion, it's yours, and it's human to want to be in integrity and own that. So, interesting life lessons along the way, right?
Yeah, I think you're spot on with that, Rick. And my experience is there's two things, and it's tough if for those that we know what the DISC profile is or something similar. You have high eyes who love to talk a lot, really talk a lot. They want to be conversational, they want to be liked, and all the things that most of us are probably on this call. But really what you see over time is the people, to your point, that can ask really good questions, and listen to you. That's the key element, is to listen. I used to have a friend back, about 15 years ago. He was a peer. He worked at First American at the time, and we called him the fighter pilot. And we would just, we would do everything we had to do. But I'll tell you, he never missed a call. He never missed a conversation. And I shared with him a long time ago, maybe even more than 15 years ago. I said, you have to be, Mike, you have to be the best listener that I have ever been in contact with. He would ask you a question. You could see his eyes. He was just listening to every word that you said. And sometimes I think maybe it's for whatever reason, people think that they have to fill this empty space and they have to speak, but actually you don't. If you listen, you're going to learn a whole heck of a lot. And that goes with, establishing a relationship with a home buyer or seller. You don't always have to speak. In fact, many times you just have to just hear what they're saying and just try and find the common ground to try and provide value.
Yeah, that's smart. Yeah, and so let them assume you're intelligent. Don't blow it by saying the wrong thing.
Amen.
No, it's better to let them give you the layup too and what they want, and then deliver exactly what they, in terms of that service you mentioned. So reflecting on your transition from young adult into the title business, how did that look? What was your first step in that arena?
Yeah, as far as working through, and really how I entered this space, it was an indirect way. I was sitting on the board of directors for the company that I'm with right now. It's Title Alliance, which was established in 1948. So it dates me by a whole heck of a lot. And it jumped out at me at one point. I didn't know anything about title. And there's plenty of people inside of our company that know appreciably more than I do. But what I did know, at least I felt I knew, was that we were actually, our core business was in the business of setting up businesses. And that spoke to me just because of perhaps my DNA, my upbringing, whatever it may be. I just love the challenge, if you will, of setting up a business. And our company that's exactly what we do. We set up joint ventures, we call them, in different markets where each one is independent, and you just have to figure out a way to make it work. So I came into it in a very indirect fashion, probably 22 years ago at this point, and I evolved over time. And it wasn't necessarily my ability to have a mastery of title that helped me build good teams and ultimately grow with the assistance of some great associates that I work with. It was about being really good in the relationship side of things, in just understanding people, just being genuine. You made a comment a little bit before about no one ever wants to be sold. And Rick, nothing speaks to me more than that. And anytime, if I ever feel like I'm being sold, and I'm sure you and everyone else, that's just antennas go up, it's over. I don't even want to have a conversation. But to avoid that, you can still be very influential by actually caring about the other human being and listening and just trying to find a common ground and trying to provide value. So to me, that's not selling. That is establishing a relationship.
Of course. Awesome. So obviously you didn't start out CEO or as an equity partner, I would assume, since the firm started in 48. What were some tips and tricks that, or ideas that evolved that allowed you to take such a strong position? What made you the leader you are today? Maybe what was the progression like?
I wish I could say it was an easy path, but it wasn't. I wish I could say there wasn't any luck involved, but there was. I think that there's an intersection of the two. So as far as equity and with the title of this being Empire Builders, that's paramount for everybody, in my opinion. I share it with my children. They hear it, but they don't. just establishing and trying to work your way into some sort of equity position, perhaps over time. This was no different. I had started, we were a privately held company, and then we went public for a hot minute for 3 years. And then where my window came was in 2007 when we purchased the company back from First American Title Insurance. They owned us for about 3 years. And there was the first window that I had to have an equity position. So I took what I could afford. With the benefit of hindsight, I would have taken more, but I took what I could afford at that time, based upon what the capital that we needed. So we took a chance, and that was the good news, that I had an equity position. The bad news is, anybody in the real estate industry, we know what 2007, 2008, 2009 was. We know what that was. So I went from hero to zero really, really quickly. Everything that I had ever earned in my entire life, it was on the line. Everything was on the line. And, I think a lot of times, people see things and they're like, oh my gosh, things work so perfectly, that was just, a natural flow for that particular person. But I really don't know anybody that has achieved their objective, whatever it may be. And financial is just one of them, but achieved their objective by just not having a little bit of good fortune, a little bit of tenacity associated with it. And I remember in 2008, things were rough. Things were really, really rough. I remember I had 3 young children, and I never shared with my wife at the time, or my wife now at the time of the event, till about 15 years later, how difficult that period of time was. And that's the path of any entrepreneur. Like, and everybody on this call, like, this is the path. It becomes difficult. But my experience is this, that markets, they go up and they come down, and the strong always seem to find a way to work their way through. And this market will be no different. I mean, we see a lot. I have conversations with brokers and real estate agents. It's daily. It's every single day. And the common denominators are the same, that you have to look, you have to be better, you have to invent, you have to reinvent. And what got you to a certain point, it may not get you there to where we are right now. We're behind in this market. I think we're about 3 years behind in a change that was probably due. And I think that we've got to put our seatbelts on. And I'm pretty confident that the strong will very much survive. They always do, but you're going to have to be a better business person to make it through the next 24 months.
So I love that you have a perspective that's obviously, your core business and what you guys do, but the concentric circle is that if you don't coexist inside of our ecosystem well and understand the minds of realtors and real estate agents and brokers, you don't win. What would you consider your greatest attribute to the organization? What do you bring that, again, you went from, entry level to mid to investor to, and then an even bigger stake, I know of late, and then obviously CEO a few years ago. What helped you climb the ladder or prove value and maybe outrun other people along the way? Because I'm sure you weren't the only one willing to do what you do, because you've been super successful inside of a great company.
Yeah, it's a fantastic company, and we've seen really high days and challenging days like anybody has in business. I would say it's 2 things, Rick, but the predominant one is really going to come back to the individual person. It's going to be your mindset. It's your attitude. It's how you are willing to respond and show up. We went through an exercise a little bit ago, and I'm a student, and I'll be a student until the day I'm no longer here, about trying how to make each day the best day it could possibly be. And for me, it always starts in the morning about just pouring into yourself and just digging in and finding out what techniques you need to do to be able to navigate the day. It's difficult out there. It's going to get even more difficult. So for me, it was, if I had to say one thing, it was going to be a mindset of positivity, of just trying to find a way to just find the good in people, to push forward and look at the glass more than half full, look at it overflowing at times. So a tremendous amount, it was mindset and just being there. I think if I had to say a second, was just trying to be a genuine human being, and genuine meaning just that you care about human beings. And anybody that knows anything about any characteristic, if you have a strong characteristic, it can be both a benefit and it can be a detriment. And and caring about people comes at a price, right? So sometimes you'll overlook deficiencies or whatever it may be. But from my experience is if you do care about people, they're gonna be very loyal to you and good things will happen. But you got, first things first, you have to get your mind straight. You have to be willing to embrace the day. You're gonna have to know the day is probably going to be difficult. In fact, it's almost a guarantee right now. It's going to be difficult. So get your mindset there. And we went through an exercise probably about 8 months ago where we realigned our core values of our company. And our number, we had some generic old ones that they still fit, they'll never go out. But our number one was embrace positivity. And if we can't get past that, then we're going to really have a really hard time working through the other foundational items that we need to as a company.
Yeah, 100%. So maybe share with us. So you talked about positivity and staying positive. I think everyone kind of conceptually gets it. Is there an application, or what does your day look like when you start? I know you're a health conscious guy. Is there a setup for that mindset piece that allows you to stay in that frame of mind? I mean, what's it look like?
Rick, I think that's a great question. I try and find, I don't think there's one single answer. I try and find every tool possible to help position myself. Everybody's different, but from conversation I've had with other people that are passionate in this area as well, there are common denominators. So to answer your question, every day I become very intentional, and it's first thing in the morning. And for me, it's about me. It's not about anybody else. It's about me. And I'll give myself, it's not all in one spot, but it's movement. But usually the first hour and a half is devoted to me. And what I mean by that is I wake up, I got into meditation, Transcendal Meditation. I would say probably 3 or 4 years ago. It was the genesis of someone that's involved in our group. And I'll tell you, that was probably the single biggest game changer, was just going through that and just clearing my mind every day. It's a significant commitment, but it's one that I don't miss. In fact, I do it 2 times a day. The other is exercise, and I have a love-hate relationship with exercise because I love to do a lot of things, but I don't always want to get out and run and go lift weights and all those things. But it's paramount. So I try and do something at least 4 to 5 days a week on that front. But I have to fight with it. So I have 2 different accountability partners that literally every Sunday the text is going through. Did you do your 5 sessions or did you not? And if you did not, then it's going to cost you a bunch. And then there are other things. I do a lot. I try to just go back to the basics. Tremendous amount of gratitude. I spend time just putting gratitude out there. And my experience with that is that from my way of thinking, you can't have 2 emotions at the same time. So when something's really, really bad, if you're turning it around and you try and find some gratitude moment, you're not going to stay in that bad spot for a moment. But for me, I probably have 5 or 6 or 7 things that I'll do throughout the course of the day that just help me be my best. And frankly, I'd be afraid. I've been doing them for so long now. I mean, passionately, not all of them, but probably somewhere between 7 and 10 years. And I would be physically concerned for myself if I ever stopped the technique of what I do to get my day going each and every day.
So meditation, this is kind of a foreign conversation. I've sat through some guided sessions.
Yeah.
You say you do it twice a day. What might that look like? Because I do believe that the energy you get from being centered and you shut down the outside world just long enough to recalibrate, it gives you it's almost like pull into a gas station and refilling. And it's amazing when you do breathing exercises and what your body just, it thirsts for a lot, more water than you probably give it and more air than you probably give it. I found myself actually so focused and concentrating on a task or an opportunity that I've quit breathing. Like I just feel myself, so I'm like, and that's just me, and everyone has their own tempo and flow. But what's your meditation look like? Just a brief thumbnail.
Yeah. It's incredibly simple, incredibly complicated at the same time. And it's hard to define success. So the method I use is called Transcendal Meditation.
You can shut the door if you want, hon.
Yeah, and essentially, what that does is that it just puts you in a position where you have the ability via your mantra to push away thoughts. So thoughts come into your brain. That's the challenge about meditation. Meditation, you're supposed to be silent, but they come into your brain. So you have to figure out a way to try and remove them. And I can only speak to this discipline because it's the only one that I know, and you have to go through instruction to do so, that you're successful both ways. So you're successful when you're capable via your mantra to get these thoughts out of your brain, and it's for 20 minutes, 2 times a day. You're successful when that happens, but you're also successful, and this is the complicated part, when you come in and you have thoughts, and you're thinking about your to-do list, you're thinking about the house, you get the list, et cetera, that is actually not unnatural, and it's actually part of the process. And I'm a big believer in sleep. So, and where this comes into play here, like really big believer, is that I have a ring called an Aura ring, and some of you may have it. But I'm able to track my heart rate during meditation. And I'd be happy to send you a picture. But I can see at the beginning of the session, I'll be sitting at X. At the end, I'm sitting at Y. I've dropped a whole heck of a lot. So it's not like, do I think it's working? Like, I know it's working. And for me, it's an automatic reset. So no matter how tired I am, and we all have challenging lives, it just puts me back in the zone. So if I had to pick one thing, this would be the one.
That's cool. Thanks for sharing. And so if someone were to have interest in meditation, I would assume there's YouTube videos. Is there a source that sort of launched you or helped you frame a strategy?
Mine was purposeful. I mean, there's YouTube for a lot of things, and there's so many different types. There's apps. I couldn't get any of them to work. They just didn't fit me. Maybe I didn't understand them.
Right.
But for it to work, and I believed in it so much. My wife and I went and did the same session. It's been a while, probably been 4 or 5 years. We both did it. We both practiced. I'm a little bit more disciplined than she is, but she does do it. But I believed in so much, and I didn't ask my children. I didn't ask them at all. But they all came to me and said, I want to do that. So I actually invested the money for all 3 of them. It's not a whole heck of a lot of money, but I invested the money in for them to go ahead and to learn this technique. And my son, my 22-year-old son, I wish I knew this at 22 years old, but 2 times a day, he's doing the same thing before work and after work. He's just getting back in the zone. So Transcendental Meditation, TM, is the short version. But to do it, if that's the path that you want, that you're interested in looking at, you need to have instruction. It's not overbearing, but it is a day and a half, not full day and a half, but it is a day and a half where you go make a commitment, and then it's constant follow up. Like, you're perpetually just working on your techniques.
Yeah, and you're a hard driver, man. This isn't like I think historically a lot of people think of people who meditate as being a little, I don't want to assault anybody, but grassroots, or maybe not grassroots, but just, that chill vibe person, that followed the Grateful Dead, or I don't know, I'm making up things to be funny, but you're a pretty intense guy. And it sounds like that's part of the counterbalancing strategy so that, you don't blow a gasket.
Well, I think that's right. And that was really, that was the starting point. And I didn't know what I didn't know. I was just, trying to figure it out. But I can just say from, we all live in a difficult world, but when I really started getting into it, my family members, and I wouldn't call myself high strung, but life is stressful. But I will tell you, this was a neutralizer. So it's part of my repertoire. It will not go away. So as long as I'm on this earth, it will not go away. Another thing that jumped out, I mean, maybe Rick, you and I may have talked about this. I got into maybe 4 years ago, whenever a family reunion was in Dallas, probably about 4 years ago. I got into Wim Hof's techniques, the cold showers and all of that. That's another way to just, it's a number of different things, but mental discipline, immunity, inflammation, those sort of things. So if you have the time, just dig into Wim Hof. He's one of the craziest guys on planet Earth. But I'll tell you, I don't want to jinx myself because I'll probably get sick this afternoon. But I haven't been sick in 4 or 5 years, maybe even longer.
Man, it's a cool potential health hack. And one thing's for sure, the market's changing, and we can shift gears and talk about that. But before we do, one thing I want to get everybody to get their head around: what does your organization look like from a management? Like, how many people report, and just give them the scope.
Yeah, we have, we're presently in 13 states. We have about 240 associates in our company. We're going through a reinvention, if you will. because of the market, and it's actually a very good and healthy thing. So I have three direct reports, and we really flattened our organization. And we have corporately, we probably have 25 or 30, and then the balance are out in what we call our joint ventures in the various states and locations.
Cool. So it's a big organization and a lot of responsibility. And you're also, what's cool about where you sit is that, a lot of our perspective is either the national media news you just catch on the, either internet or public domain. But the other piece of it is, we're a local service business driven by local people, and our experience in Atlanta might be subtly different. But what do you see on the landscape and horizon? You mentioned this morning we were on an accountability call that we host a couple times a month with some really cool guys that, you're seeing a depreciation in units or volume to the tune of 15 to 20% or more. Mm-hmm. Is that accurate?
Yeah, no, it's very accurate. We've been seeing it because we're in so many different markets. We're seeing a pretty rapid decline, and it's not unexpected. But yeah, so to put things in relative terms, in August over August, we were down 29% in open orders. 29%. We're down about 20% for the year. So of course, from any business perspective, when you're down that much, that's where generally all of the profit is. You really have to scramble and hard to work to make things work. It is not unexpected. It is not. We started preparing for this in November of last year to just be able to make sure that we are going to, we're going to live to fight the day. But it's happening. It's real. We see the changes, and this one is a tricky market. And I listened to a number of things that Gary Kell was talking about from his mega camp recap, where he said this is the most challenging market for him to predict because there are so many conflicting pieces. Now, 2008, we knew we were diving. Here we're diving, but we don't know how fast and to where. And we all know that there's been anybody in the industry, there's been an incredible imbalance, and healthy imbalance, if you will, where the sellers were just dominating the market. And anytime you have one side controlling that much, we know bad things are going to happen. So I think the challenge is going to be this. Is for the true professionals in the real estate industry, and I believe that they're absolutely they're more important than they've ever been right now, to make sure that they understand the local market, that they understand the best way to educate both the sellers and the buyers. Right now, sellers, many of them, they're still have the mentality. They're looking at their balance sheet from 3 or 4 months ago in many markets, and guess what? It's not going to be the same number. It's just not going to be the same number. So it's just going to be an education, a reinvention, and just being pragmatic. But I think it is healthy, but it's not going to come without a little bit of pain along the way.
Any idea? I mean, just based on the people you're listening to, how long this might exist? And I assume you believe that we're already in a recession or have been for a short season.
I feel like we've been in. I don't know what they quote unquote define a recession, but it sure as heck feels like one to me. Just by how people are communicating, just by their actions. But I kind of feel we're in it. I think the stock market's probably priced itself as if we're in a recession. I sure hope it has. But how long? No one ultimately knows. We've actually been in it for a while. And we've been watching on a monthly basis. We've been watching this deterioration. We're preparing right now our plan to work towards the end, towards the end of 2023. I think by then things will have stabilized. So I don't anticipate a drop off a cliff like we saw in 2008, but I do expect us to be going into a headwind here, and we just have to buckle down. I think everybody just needs to be better at what they do, more passionate, go back to the basics. And it's all of us. So we run huddle calls in our company. We on the West, we run them 3 times a week, on the East 1 time a week. And I cannot go a single huddle call when it's my turn to speak to talk about the importance of going back to the basics. Going back to the basics. So for a real estate agent, the basics are going to be they're going to be canvassing, they're going to be prospecting, they're going to be looking for new clients. It's the same with our teams. They need to be more present now than they've ever been. The market's shrinking, and there's nobody that can control that. but you can control the effort that you put forth to earn the business that's there. So the strong will make it. I have absolutely no doubt about that. Time has proven that. But you have to get back to the basics. You have to get back to the blocking and tackling. You have to get back to the relational side of things. If I haven't heard it once, I haven't heard it up 10 different times. When I speak to real estate professionals, what they want the most is they want confidence in their transaction. There's no way, no how they could possibly lose a transaction right now. And I understand that, but they want the relational component associated with it. In our area, title insurance is it's like air. It's vague, but what they want is confidence, and they want a relationship. They want people to be there. And they want to be their ally. So I keep training our people who are technicians. It's a really difficult conversation. I said, you don't have to be a salesperson. Nobody wants a salesperson, but you sure as heck better have a relationship with everybody that you hope to earn business from.
Yeah, I mean, relationships are the cornerstone of trust, and without that, honestly, the pursuit of winning someone's heart and mind is irrelevant. Trust is step one. And you kind of get one shot at it. So the two things you should be tracking, it sounds like, are the number of prospects and then conversions, which the conversion lives inside of that relationship and the value proposition exposure that you bring. You said something a minute ago that was interesting to me too. You said, and maybe I paraphrase in the way I wrote it, but get clear on what you're actually selling and make sure your value proposition supports it. And I sort of transcended, because at first it was like, you're not really selling closings, you're selling relationships and commitment inside of market centers that then lead to the referral, because you're not the direct source, typically, I would assume, given you're an alliance business, right?
Yeah, you're selling, and our model is driven by equity, so there is an extra component, but I don't want our teams to be dependent upon that. What you're selling is you're selling peace of mind to that real estate agent, that they don't have to worry about that transaction. Number one, first and foremost, they can't worry about a transaction. And I tell them, I said, listen, guys, every 2 weeks, and today is the day, every 2 weeks, you look at your bank account. Guess what's going to happen? There's going to be money there. Abracadabra. Guess what? The people that we do business with, that we have for all these decades, there's no guarantees of when that money's coming in. So you have to take away that heartburn, that angst, and make sure you're there. And the same is true, in any business, relational business. You need to remove the pressure points. You need to make it easy. And ideally, what I really like to see from our teams, and I'm not going to tell you it's easy, because it's not, is I really like them to promote to the best of their ability, to promote the real estate agents, to make them look like the hero in the eyes of the buyers and the sellers. And why do you do that? Well, why? Because one's the right thing to do. Make them look good, whatever that means. And so I recently, this one was a bad one. This one was horrific. I recently bought a home, and I didn't say it was me. And I will tell you that the team, they totally dropped the ball. They didn't acknowledge the order. I was going to set on the home. I bought the home about 3 weeks ago, until 3 days before I sold the home. And then someone reached out, and I just kind of nonchalantly referenced. I'm like, nice to hear from you. It was a bad situation. But to me, there's something to learn from that. That you have to go back to the basics, and what they said, and the argument that came back when there was no interaction was, well, the real estate agent, they didn't want any communication from the title company. They just wanted to come directly from us. And I said, well, I don't necessarily agree with that. And I'm going to confirm that with the real estate agent. And so in the heels of that, here's what I propose is that in the transaction, you send out a letter to, in this case, I was the buyer. Hey, congratulations on the purchase of your home. Wasn't it great? I mean, you're fortunate to work with Rick Hale, and I will tell you, he is the utmost professional in the space, and he will make sure he has his client's best interest from the beginning to end. I'm just here as a resource to help support him. So if you need anything, just be here for us. So what's that? A 6-second email that goes out that just acknowledges the fact it makes the real estate agent look good, but also knows you're a resource. So to me, it's about communicating. There was no communication in this transaction. That didn't go over real well with me. But there was also no ability to make the real estate agent look better.
Right.
You
Right.
help somebody, they're going to help you back. I can pretty much guarantee you that.
Absolutely. It's the law of reciprocity. And, this transcends into the realtor conversation too, because we all have vital pieces and parts that make each transaction either an incredible, incredibly smooth or bumpy and challenging. And certain things are coming your way that are bumpy and challenging no matter what. And two thoughts. One, if your allied partners are aligned culturally and connected to a narrative about how you're synergistic and oh, you're so lucky to have John doing, handling the closing. You're so lucky to have Sarah managing the process through lending. She's amazing. She's never let me down. Like votes of confidence go a long way, especially like in a third party testimonialized way. And the point I hear that I think everyone needs to hear now more than ever, you need a credible army or tribe around you that are, and it's not about blowing up each other with fake news. It's about actually living into that expectation or that, described, hey, they're awesome, now prove it. And then having an action plan to do it. The other thing I heard you say that in sticky times or in stressful situations, it's easy to hide and wait for the good news to show up.
Mhm.
But that's really the time to over communicate, even if you don't have active information. Even if it's just, hey, I want you to know I'm still watching the ball. It hasn't moved in the last 3 days. I know we're trying to further that or get the appraisal issue worked out or whatever the issue is. But a minute in a real estate agent's life is like 100 years in the mind and body of a buyer or seller that's stressing out about the biggest transaction of their life.
Yeah, there's no question. And Rick, you and I both know Sean Stevenson. He was an amazing, gifted speaker, a PhD, and I had the good fortune of having an extended session with him for about 14 hours, and I actually wish it was longer than that. But in that, he talked about the psychology, and I actually went to him. It was titled the keynote speech or something to that effect. I'm like, this is cool. I can work on that. It'd be kind of fun thing to work through. And about 6 hours into the session, he didn't say one word about a keynote speech. He was into the human psychology of what people are thinking by you not saying something. The psychology of, hey, you better address their concerns before they address them for you. Very, very. Right, you know what I'm talking about? Like, you better address the fact, like, well, why is it that way? Why do you think you can do that? Or just put the objections out there before they have a chance. And so, what does that ultimately do? And he wasn't a salesperson, but he could sell because he knew human beings and how the brains were wired. Remove the objections.
Yeah,
Say the words. Say the words.
And in sticky situations and stressful circumstances, the objections are going to stack up pretty quick. So the more in tune you are with the likely objections and handling them in positive ways, you derail all those negative or dissension-rich thoughts. That's smart.
Well, yeah, I mean, think about it from the context of, you've done an amazing job with your team, Rick, in assembling a network of real estate companies inside of Keller Williams. That is very highly regarded. And I'm not saying that because you and I have a friendship. It's because that's the truth. We have many common people that are just we're not even connected from a business perspective. But it's about that. It's about it's about how do you be the best professional you can be. And to me, like if I were a real estate agent in this market right now, I would do the best job that I could to offer valid information, true, bona fide data about the market. But I would answer as many objections as possible before they even say the words, so they know your authenticity, they know your knowledge inside the market. And so, they're going to talk about rates and this, and I think you have to go back and forth with that. You have to justify that. Is now a good time or a terrible time to buy a house? Well, that depends. That absolutely depends. And you can make it, you can have a conversation either way. But the ones that I've seen that really excellent professionals, and there are so many great ones out there, they do a really good job in navigating. They answer those objections before the words come out of the buyer or seller's mouth, and they're that much further along in the process. Because right now, and I share this with our teams, good is not going to be good enough. It will not get you through the market. You have to be excellent or even above excellent to really make some traction in this market.
Yeah, and you have to, exactly, spot on. And you mentioned, back to that, get clear what you're selling and get real clear on your value proposition and deliver at a high level. I firmly believe that with all human beings, they're really not buying a house. They're buying a lifestyle, potentially an investment or wealth building, but it's freedom, it's security. Make sure that's in the conversation, that it's head and heart, and then you're connecting the dots on what really inspires. And, without emotional energy behind a conversation, which means authentic and real and open, the word motion is actually in the word emotion.
That's right.
People don't move without it. And so, you don't want to be so tactical and checkbox worthy that, you leave people's energy behind when it comes to that emotional context. Because I'm telling you now, there's a lot of mixed information. There's also, when times get stressful, emotion rises. And when emotion expands, intellect, man, it's hard to battle. Intellect doesn't easily deflate emotion.
Yeah, and there's actually nowhere to hide right now. It's just the world that we live in. So I think you really, in all of this, I think the words just being relational, like establishing general relationship with your buyers and sellers, it's always important, but it's critically important now. It's not like a nice to have. It's a must have. You need to be in a position where you are actually have a relational component with somebody to help them and build that credit as you go through, because it's going to be tough for them. I mean, we talk about our business, like our business. So by default, our business is tough right now. Well, why is our business tough? Well, because the real estate professionals, because it's tough for them. And why is it tough for them? Well, because it's tough for the buyers and tough for the sellers. So it's all of us. So we just have to just navigate this together. In my experience is this: I've been through 4 really challenging markets, and there's always something to be learned from each of them. And the true professionals, they come out better than when they started. Opportunity will exist. People are going to buy homes no matter what. They're going to buy homes. They have to. They're going to buy them. They might buy less of them for a period of time, but they're still going to buy homes. So just use this time, and we're doing it with ourselves. We're not immune from this. We're using this window to be a better version of ourselves. We're tightening up our policies. We're just making sure that we have deliverables. So when we go in and we have a presentation for a new relationship, that we can actually walk the talk.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And this is definitely moving towards a skills-based market and less organic, strictly relational. So make sure you sharpen your saw on your skills side to manage the changing dynamics of what buying and selling looks like, both with EQ and IQ. EQ being your emotional quotient and ability to connect with people in difficult times. IQ being smart enough to navigate the nuances of change, and also to be able to build a case to support them emotionally when people make their decision emotionally, and buyer and seller remorse is nothing more than that reflected energy that shows up once the emotion slows down and you go, oh my God, I just bought a fill in the blank. Did I make a mistake? And so that's where the skills side of being able to remind them, well, we built this spreadsheet, we built your budget, we built your, the strategy, the outcome, and the experience you're after. And as long as these still resonate, you can take a deep breath and feel confident you're making a great decision.
Yeah, I think
so that's the kind of conversation you've got to get good at.
You have to be great at it. You can't be good at it. You have to be great at it, and be able to answer the objections before they come out. And to me, that shows authenticity. Just, hey, this may or may not be a good house for you, but we're gonna talk about some of the pros and cons, because anybody knows if it's all glitter and gold, they're going to say, well, wait a second, this is for you, not for me. So just be pragmatic in that approach, because people are, human beings for the most part. They're really smart, and they're going to be able to see through all of that. But when it's all said and done, it's going to force us to be better, and that's a really good thing. Like, challenging markets will do that. And I think what we just need to do is just refine, get back to the basics. And in our company, it's going to be paramount, and we're going to keep saying it until we don't have to say it, which may be never. That we were in a relational business. Make sure you're providing value. Make sure you make the real estate agents look good. If you do those things, you're going to win. Same thing is true for a real estate professional. Just if you work through those foundational principles, you will win the game.
Awesome, great advice. Who's been your favorite mentor?
It's interesting.
And why?
Favorite mentor, and I've only ever had one boss. I shared that earlier on the call. I had one boss, and it was going back 32 years ago. I still stay connected to him. His name is Eustace Mita, as I mentioned. And from a distance, recently with having conversations with him, I'll connect with him one-on-one. He's become He's done fabulously successful in different areas of life now. He owns hotels and those types of things. But for me, it would be him because one, he gave me a chance when I needed a chance, but either it was in my DNA or he pushed it out of me and made me think about it. Was that self-improvement and that power of positive thinking and just keep pushing forward, that Og Mandino, the greatest salesman in the world. So I keep going back to that. So there's many more people that are more relevant, like as far as time is concerned, but the basics are still the basics.
Yeah, right on. How about favorite book? Any books you'd recommend? What are you reading right now, and what have you loved above, obviously, the greatest salesman in the world, Og Mandino? That's on the list. That's a little read. It's a realtor read. It's not a thick book.
Well, I like the realtor reads. That's what I like. I mean, I want to check the box. I read a book. I mean, I want to
check it out.
Yeah. Foundationally, I love Dale Carnegie. I mean, I'm dating myself. I'm probably an old soul. I mean, I love that stuff. It's just, it doesn't go out of style. I've been through his courses once as a student, 2 times as a graduate associate. The book that I'm reading now, to answer your question, I mean, but if you haven't read Dale Carnegie's principles, then certainly do that. There's nothing new in there, but I will tell you, if you read it 50 years from now, everything will still work. I'm reading a book right now. What got you here won't get you there, and really the genesis of that is just the world is changing, and I'm taking a good hard look at everything, and I don't want to make any assumptions about the future. And there were many things that were successful in what we're doing as an organization, and some that were not. And some things work really, really well. But I don't want to make any assumptions that the future, the past recipe will be the correct one going forward. And that's where that's where myself and my team, I'm blessed to have such a great team where we're digging deep to make sure that we just make sure that we're finding value. And you know what, Rick, you see it a lot. Like, we're not going to be the only industry going through this. You can't open up your internet browser without seeing some major change in the company. I saw Starbucks recently. We all know who they are, of course, where they're changing their whole organization. Like, they're changing their whole organization, and they mean that from how they're going to run their company, how their executive leadership. And they made a decision whereby they had their COO was with the company for 21 years, I believe, and they amicably agreed to say, we're not going to have that role anymore. We're not going to have that role anymore. And the gentleman he went out and publicized. He said, you know what? I agree with this decision. It's best for the company. So you see these companies reinvent and change. It's all over it's all over the place. You see what yesterday with Federal Express, and sometimes you get this illusion that because you're a really big company, you're going to be able to make it through it all. Well, what goes up really quick because you have this buying power can come down really quick, and markets are, they'll react really, really quickly. So there are plenty of industries right now, and I would say the vast majority that they're going through this period of is this going to work? And I saw a little bit ago, and this was really incredibly interesting to me. So we all know Uber, and Uber probably about 9 months ago, they made a strategic decision to partner with New York taxis. Their arch rival was Batman going, against the Joker, because they could not get drivers in New York. So you see people that took a foundationally solid business model and said, you know what, it's not working here. I have to do something different. So I think those companies, regardless of the industry, that just stay where they are and don't adapt, whether it's us, real estate professionals, if you don't adapt and really dig deep right here, I think you're going to be challenged as we go forward the next year and a half or so.
Yeah, there's definitely a short-term. In fact, the challenge we have right now, I think, with supply and demand and opportunity for realtors is that there already are too many agents relative to the number of transactions available. And the challenge also will be if the market, let's say we give back 25% of the volume, or pricing goes down, which is the same net effect. In fact, if both pricing goes down, your commissions go down inherently because of the percentage. And then the number of units goes down, but the number of agents doesn't depreciate fast enough. And usually there's a lagging effect. Mm-hmm. And so you may have to double down and just and really lean in and tell your story better, network more aggressively, and expand your database and your sphere, and don't wait, because one thing's for sure, once there's a hole in the hull and you're out at sea, it's hard to tap it. Right now, you've still got the ability to, take a deep breath. No one's, I don't think anyone's feeling financially detrimented yet, but it's like a lagging effect. But if you don't, pack a parachute, the plane engine may never stop running, but if you pack a parachute, you're prepared and ready, and it'll always land softly.
Well, I think you have to, and I think there will be a change, right? There always is in these markets, and are there too many real estate agents? I think we all know the answer to that. The ones that are really committed to their trade. Now, from my perspective, and I don't have a horse in the race here. I've had two personal transactions within the last year. A good agent is worth their weight, is absolutely worth their weight. They found stuff that I would not find. So that's not going away. So I think that, from that perspective, the ones that are really professionals that have the systems that are willing to dig down and get back to the basics, and it's what I'm asking of our teams. And I was delighted a little bit ago because the market's tough. I mean, it's tough and going to be tougher. That one of our companies, I encourage them, and mind you, there's not one salesperson in the company. There's probably about 8 employees in this particular entity. They went and they just reached out to 312 agents in the market center. They did it all. They took turns, and just not to sell them anything, just to be there. Connection. I'm here to support you, even if you don't have anything with us. I'm here to support you. They reached out to 312 agents, and they came back with 17 contracts. Why? Because they were present. They're not salespeople. They don't know how to put together great words as far as, and they didn't need to, because that's, we talked about sales or lack thereof. They were just there. They were visible. They were present. So my best advice to anybody, and we are no exception, is be there, be present, block some time, make sure that it's going to become a numbers game. It's going to become an absolute numbers game.
Right on. So what do you think the market of the moment's going to be? Where are you thinking, like financial advice? Anything? I realize you're not a certified financial planner, at least I don't think so. So you're not held or bound to any criteria. What are your thoughts on financial investing or strategies, given in light of what the next 12 to 18 months might look like?
This is I am not a financial advisor, but this is a really difficult market. And I don't really know if there's anywhere to hide. And the words that I would use is, I would say I'd be very, very cautious, very, very cautious. If you see something that's obvious where you can earn some equity, where you might be able to have some influence in, that's a good conversation. But to me, cash is king. Be incredibly prudent with your expenses. Look at you. I said to my wife today, I said, you know what? One of these months we ought to scroll through our account and look at these auto withdrawals. Because I see Showtime on there. I haven't watched Showtime in about 10 years. So be prudent with your expenses. And I would say just be really, really cautious. Me personally, I may invest in something now, but the reality of it is I would rather just take my breath a little bit, let the market settle. I think the stock market, it's going through its challenges right now. It's not, I'm certain it's not over. And real estate, we know this is, it's generally the safest haven to invest in, but you're going to need some caution right now. So, right now, my advice, at least the advice that I would say to my family, is like markets, they come and go, be prepared for it. And just be really, really cautious, keep some cash on the sidelines, make sure, keep a couple, 2, 3, 4 months of reserves in the bank. And I think you'll breathe a little bit easier.
Right. So control your consumable expenditures. That sounds like what I'm hearing. And discretionary spending, take a hard look at your budget, tighten it up, get serious. If the market pulls back 30%, how could you? I mean, I know from a business owner's perspective, this is exactly what Gary expects of us. If you knew you were going to have a 30% reduction in income, how are you going to offset that with expense control? And then where do you deploy resources for the greatest ROI?
That's right.
And we've enjoyed a 7-8 year run where everything's a winner. And now being selective in what you do and how you deploy capital and even your time. The 80-20 rule has never been more valuable as a reassessment, piece of your mindset daily than now.
I agree wholeheartedly. I think it's 80-20 and then maybe 80-20 one more time. Pure focus. Going back, we pulled some notes. Interesting. We had a mastermind about 1.5 years ago in Phoenix, Arizona, with some high producing brokers. And in that mastermind, we talked about like how do we best help our global cause. And it was hyper focused. It was time. It was like top 6 people that can change your destiny with the transactions in this particular relationship. So I think this is nothing new. I think just going back to the foundational principles that have existed for decades and decades and decades. Stick with that time block, be prudent, and just grind. Good things happen if you're a good person and you're willing to just have conversations and be present. And is it a good market? Yes, it's a good market. It depends on what perspective you're on. So transactions are going to happen. They're going to happen. And the professionals, the strong professionals will earn the right to be the host of those.
There you go, man. That's awesome wisdom. And we're about out of time. I'll recap just a couple of thoughts. One, you said, I think the book was What Got You Here Won't Get You There.
Mm-hmm.
And so you just need to internalize that. So the things that blocking and tackling yesterday may not have the same outcome tomorrow. And if you don't have someone to consult with, go to your team leader or someone you respect in the industry that's knocking it out of the park, or even, and sometimes better, outside of our industry, to garner some creative thought around, what are we not doing that we think always works that may not be an always working strategy. So what got you here won't get you there. Think about what it would take to elevate your business 50% so that if it were reduced by 25, you're still net positive. It's all about getting your unfair share. And so that's an awesome thought. And so find a coach or a consultant to help you develop and devise a revised plan. Make sure that you play defense to protect your assets, and then go offense on lead generation and relational.
I'd say as offensive as you could be. If you get scared here, it's going to be a bad thing. Anybody that's ever had the opportunity to ride a wave runner or a snowmobile, the worst thing you can do going around a turn is let off the gas. It's going to be a bad outcome. And I'll just finish on one note, Rick, the importance of accountability. And I know that you know this at the highest level possible, but accountability can be an amazing, amazing tool. So if what comes out of this, that you're gonna triple down on your time blocking for calls, find some partners and establish some guidelines to it, make it fun, but set some parameters. And then at the end of every week, text each other, did you do it or did you not? And have an extreme consequence if you did not. If you follow through with that, you'll be in a good spot. I promise you that.
That's awesome. Great final thought. Jim, you're a gentleman, a scholar, and an incredible success story. I appreciate you sharing all of your success and making our day better.
I appreciate you, Rick, and all the good things you've done for all the great agents around you. So stay you, and until next time, we will keep on keeping on.
That's awesome.
All right,
Thanks,
guys.
Jim. Take care, guys.
Bye-bye.